I have been making medieval games, well, since I started YouTube. It's what this channel has always been, and, well, especially the main channel as well, and it's where my passion lies. So many people have actually been asking me why I haven't played Bellwright yet, and I thought I should probably address, well, what's going on with that game. Because it's not true. I have played Bellwright.
Where are we? Here, good. Great name.
Bellwright, if anybody doesn't know, is one of the newest medieval open world games, and this is why I think people are looking at it as, well, it should be perfect for you, right? This should be the game that you put front and center on your main channel. You go into an open world that you can play with friends or on your own, and there are a plethora of NPCs. There's a rich crafting system, there's base building, there's even a combat system that is actually quite a lot of fun and that I've already played around with and done some testing with, and I actually quite enjoy it. The game itself has had some decent reviews. It's been said that gameplay is fun, calming, and I would probably agree with that. It's quite a relaxing title, and whilst it does have more of a grindy notion towards its gameplay,
Inventory, building, place construction site. Oh, we need to be further away. Okay, I'm going.
I think overall it's fine, and it gets away with it just because the game is very satisfying to play. It looks pretty nice as well. There are a few issues with textures, but overall lighting makes this game look pretty decent. And gameplay wise, there's a lot to do there. You've got about 30-40 hours within this early access game, and that's an important thing to notice. It is an early access game. So first off the bat, in terms of the initial reviews for Bellwright, from my own opinions and, well, the general consensus, it's doing a pretty good job. But there is a darker past to this game that I thought I'd address within this video, just so when my main video comes out, I can sort of send people over here. So if you're here from the main channel, nice to see you. Bellwright is made by some developers called the Donkey Crew, and this is not their first game. In fact, they've made 2 games before that I have at least experienced and I have known in the past. The first was a game called Of Kings and Men. This title, I think, was released back in 2016, or at least was announced around that time. 2016, 2017 was the main era for Of Kings and Men. And this was made by the Donkey Crew to be an open world medieval game. It has base building, it had crafting, it had NPCs, and it had a massive overworld map. It had on this overworld map that was called the Epic at the time, different clans and different areas that could be claimed. Clans could then go to war with each other, and this was fully multiplayer, by the way. But when you're within the world, you can build castles, you can chop down trees, gather resources, make armies, using NPCs as almost like, I don't know, robot slaves, and then the players themselves are the ones that train as soldiers, that put on this armor and go to war, because there was a fully fleshed out combat system that was okay at the time. It was actually based on a Mount and Blade Warband mod, Persistent World, an open world mod where you could do the same. Gather resources, all have your own clans and your own roles within those clans, going to war with other people, capturing castles. And some of the modders, or at least some people from that, wanted to go over and make a standalone game. And that's where Of Kings and Men came into fruition. Now, the game came out, and it wasn't quite what people wanted. This huge open world didn't exist, and in fact it was just a few medieval skirmish game modes. It was multiplayer, it looked quite nice for the time, and the combat system was decent, but it was just multiplayer battles. There wasn't this huge open world with NPCs and resource gathering and crafting that was promised within the initial teaser trailers, and that left people disappointed. But they were hoping that this game would continue to be developed. Now, as the Donkey Crew went on, they did bring out new updates, and that Epic did eventually come out. Not in the form of a massive open world, but just a map. Clan battles did happen on a smaller scale, but eventually people realized that this title was not going to be what was promised. It was way too optimistic for the size and, well, the experience of the team, and eventually Of Kings and Men not only was stopped development by the Donkey Crew, but was completely removed from Steam. It almost doesn't exist anymore. The trailers were taken down off YouTube, you have to find re-uploads of them, and in general, Of Kings and Men has gone dark. There is nothing to do with this title anymore. It's almost as if it's invisible. And I think that was intentional. I think the Donkey Crew felt embarrassed by a game that they had not accomplished to make. So then they left. A few years later, they came back with a new game. This was called The Last Oasis. This was an open world game, this time not medieval, but almost this post-apocalyptic survival game. Think of like a Conan Exiles, but with cool mech suits and mech vehicles made out of wood and, well, string. It was really cool, and I loved the aesthetic they were going for. This was an idea that kind of took what they learned and the experience they got from Kings and Men and scaled it down a little bit more, but then decided to work from the ground up. And that game did release. And the Last Oasis came up alongside your Conan Exiles and your Ark Survival Evolved and was fairly successful. It had a decent sized player base at the time, and the reviews for it were pretty positive because the idea was good. You could work with clans and work with fellow soldiers, and you could build these really cool mechanized, I don't even know what to call them, structures that you could walk around, and these huge walkers were so cool. Swinging between them, putting ballistas and upgrading them, and then going to battle other clans. And all in all, The Last Oasis was a pretty positively well-received game. It was different to Kings and Men, which was initially positively received, and then people realized, okay, this is just a tech demo, we're not getting the full game here, so people then hated it. This one actually had more content, so people enjoyed it. They positively reviewed it. Overall, okay, it was a little bit mixed towards the end, and then they were expecting something more. They were expecting the game to carry on advancing and people to carry on playing it, but as you might have guessed by the trend and my tone of voice, The Last Oasis was eventually abandoned. No more updates came out, the player base died, and the Donkey Crew left. 2 games with 2 different ideas that gained a lot of hype, and a lot of people bought these games. None of these were free, and were eventually left before they ever left early access. And this brings me on to Bellwright. You see, Bellwright has been very positively received on the most part. It is a medieval game that should be down my street, and I've been playing it and I do actually quite enjoy it.
Yes, the purple flowers. There we go. Yes, sorted. So far, it's okay.
But there will always be that doubt at the back of my mind, because as you might have realized at the start of this video, I mentioned Bellwright is an early access game. Released by the Donkey Crew, the same people that released 2 early access games back in the day and left. And that is where most of my doubts come in. Because are they doing a good job with it so far? Yes, updates are coming out. There are some really good fixes, and there's a good amount of content within it. And I would even say the money you're paying, which is about, I think, £30 or something like that, $30 maybe, is worth the game that you're getting at this point in time, which is more than I could say for Kings and Men. And whilst I didn't play it too much, probably about right for Last Oasis, but at least in Bellwright, you're definitely getting enough content for what you're playing at this point in time. However, what I would say is I wouldn't hold out a lot of faith for this thing being finished. I hope to God that they can get this thing out of early access, that Bellwright can be the game that they always wanted to make. I don't really have any ill will towards Donkey Crew. I think they made a lot of mistakes on their development cycle, but they're still going and they're still trying. The unfortunate part is they have been taking money from people and not delivered what they said. And that was a disaster for Kings and Men. And of course, I keep coming back to Last Oasis being a less of a disaster, but it still angered a lot of people. And I don't understand why there is a fight back from the developers, because I've heard a lot of them trying to shush down all the negative side and the criticism that came from those last 2 games, because they do want a fresh start and they do want to try something new, and that is fair enough, and they've done an okay job of it so far. But the doubts have to be there. You have to do your own due diligence in order to actually make a fair assessment of games like this, to look at people like, well, the company that's making it, and look at their history. And that's why I've been very careful about making a full channel and a wider video on Bellwright, even though it should be down my alleyway. It should be perfect. I've put maybe 2 or 3 hours into it. I probably want to put double that, if not more, in the future before I release this full video. But I think it's important to note that if you're getting into Bellwright, be very careful, because I've had a lot of people asking if they should buy it. And my opinion is, if you look at the game, you look at reviews and you think it's worth your money right now, go ahead. But I'd be skeptical at how this game gets finished, if it ever does, because 2 out of 3 have been abandoned. It's only a matter of time before we can see what happens with this newest one.
Aha! No, you're not a stone.